For years, Princess Diana's inheritance was considered the one thing no royal crisis could ever touch. It survived divorces, scandals, abdications, and even the bitter internal fractures that followed Diana's death. Carefully structured through trusts and overseen by multiple legal guardians, her estate was designed not just to provide financial security for her sons, but to protect them from influence, pressure, and exploitation long after she was gone. That protection, insiders say, is now being tested in ways no one inside the palace ever anticipated. According to sources with knowledge of internal royal legal discussions, a private inheritance review connected to Prince Harry was quietly initiated following a convergence of events that raised red flags among trustees responsible for safeguarding Diana's legacy. This was not a public action, not a courtroom battle, and not a punishment. It was, insiders insist, a precaution. But in royal terms, a precaution of this magnitude is extraordinary and deeply serious. At the center of the concern was not money alone, but control. Over the past several years, Prince Harry's public life has shifted dramatically. His relocation to the United States, his commercial partnerships, his memoir, and his legal war with the British press all changed how the palace viewed his vulnerability. Harry has spoken openly about his trauma, his anger, and his belief that history is repeating itself, that his wife is being hounded just as his mother was. Those comparisons, while emotionally powerful, triggered quiet unease among those tasked with protecting Diana's estate. Diana, friends and former aides have long said, was acutely aware of how emotional narratives could be weaponized. In the final years of her life, she worried constantly about who might one day influence her sons, shape their decisions, or benefit from their status. These fears were never framed as superstition or prophecy, but as hard-earned wisdom from a woman who had seen how institutions and individuals could manipulate those inside the royal system. Her legal advisors listened. The structures they put in place reflected that concern. What reportedly forced the issue now was a surge of unverified but persistent claims circulating online, claims so inflammatory that trustees were allegedly compelled to assess whether Diana's estate could become entangled in future legal or reputational disputes. Among the most explosive was a rumor involving a so-called secret child linked to Meghan Markle. No credible evidence has ever supported this allegation, and no reputable media outlet has confirmed it. Yet, according to royal legal experts, the truth of a rumor is sometimes less important than its potential consequences. When inheritance, trusts, and high-profile public figures intersect, even baseless claims can create exposure. Trustees have a legal obligation to act if there is any perceived risk to the integrity of an estate. Sources say this is precisely what happened. A confidential review was triggered, not because the palace believed the rumors, but because ignoring them could have been construed as negligence. This is where Prince William's role becomes critical. Unlike Harry, William occupies a dual position: son of Diana and future king. He is both emotionally invested and institutionally responsible. According to insiders, William was briefed on the situation as the review escalated. He was reportedly concerned not only about his brother, but about the long-term implications for Diana's legacy if boundaries were not reinforced immediately. Those close to William say he did not frame the issue as betrayal or punishment. Instead, he reportedly referenced concerns Diana herself had voiced before her death. Concerns about influence, isolation, and emotional dependency. To some insiders, this moment felt like a confirmation of warnings Diana had once shared privately, warnings that now seemed disturbingly relevant, not a prophecy in the mystical sense, but a pattern she feared could one day emerge. What followed, sources claim, was a tightening of oversight. Again, no public statement, no dramatic announcement. In royal legal practice, such actions are almost invisible from the outside. Disbursements can be paused, approvals delayed, access reviewed. To the public, nothing appears to change. Inside the system, however, everything slows down. This is why the word frozen began circulating. Not as a confirmed legal status, but as a shorthand used by commentators to describe what happens when trustees shift into defensive mode. If such measures were taken, experts stressed they would be temporary and protective, not punitive. Diana's estate was never meant to be weaponized against her son. It was meant to shield him, even from himself if necessary. Meghan Markle's presence in this story is unavoidable, though insiders caution against simplistic narratives. There is no allegation of illegal behavior. The concern, sources say, centers on perception and proximity. Meghan has become deeply intertwined with Harry's public identity, legal battles, and financial independence. Her critics see influence, her supporters see partnership. The palace sees risk. Not because of who she is, but because of how volatile the situation around Harry has become. The silence from Buckingham Palace has only intensified speculation. But this silence, royal watchers note, is deliberate. Any statement acknowledging an inheritance review would instantly legitimize rumors and invite legal scrutiny. The palace has learned that saying nothing is often safer than denying everything. What is clear is that a line has been crossed. Diana's legacy, once a unifying symbol, is now a fault line running through the heart of the royal family. Prince William has been forced into the role of guardian rather than brother. Prince Harry finds himself increasingly isolated from the systems designed to protect him. And Meghan Markle, willingly or not, remains a catalyst for tensions that show no sign of easing. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a reckoning. One that raises uncomfortable questions about trust, control, and the true cost of royal independence. What happens next will not only determine the future of Harry's inheritance, but the future balance of power inside the House of Windsor itself. And what comes next may be even more destabilizing. What makes this situation far more dangerous than previous royal scandals is not the rumor itself, but the legal architecture surrounding Princess Diana's estate and how it intersects with royal succession, trust law, and institutional survival. Diana's inheritance was never meant to function like a normal family fortune. It was deliberately insulated from the monarchy's political machinery, yet paradoxically protected by it. That contradiction is now at the heart of the crisis. Legal experts familiar with aristocratic trusts explain that Diana's estate operates under conditions that allow trustees to intervene if they believe the spirit of her intentions is being compromised. This does not require proof of wrongdoing. It requires only the perception of heightened risk. That risk can come from public exposure, reputational volatility, or potential for third-party influence over how the legacy is used, framed, or leveraged. In this case, sources claim the concern was not simply financial, but existential. Diana's image, words, and memory have become central to Prince Harry's public narrative, especially in his legal battles and media projects. To trustees, this raised an uncomfortable question. Where does personal testimony end and estate entanglement begin? Behind closed doors, the issue reportedly became more urgent when legal advisors began mapping hypothetical scenarios. What if a future lawsuit attempted to drag Diana's estate into discovery? What if unverified claims, no matter how false, were weaponized by hostile actors or foreign tabloids? What if inheritance structures were challenged on grounds of misrepresentation or emotional coercion? In elite legal environments, trustees are trained to anticipate threats long before they materialize. Waiting is considered failure. This is why Prince William's involvement reportedly shifted from passive awareness to active containment. Those close to him say he understands something his brother does not. Once legal systems are activated, emotion becomes irrelevant. William's priority, insiders insist, was not to control Harry, but to prevent irreversible damage to Diana's legacy and, by extension, the monarchy's moral foundation. Diana is not just a mother in this equation, she is a symbol. Undermining her estate would invite questions the monarchy cannot afford to answer. What complicates matters further is succession. While Harry is no longer a working royal, his children remain in the line of succession. Any destabilization involving inheritance, legitimacy, or guardianship, even at the level of rumor, creates a ripple effect. Palace lawyers are acutely aware that constitutional optics matter as much as legal reality. The idea that unresolved questions could linger around Diana's lineage, however unfounded, is considered intolerable risk. Insiders say this is where the possibility of reconciliation quietly collapsed. Trust cannot be restored while legal defenses are raised. Communication becomes filtered through lawyers. Intentions are questioned. Silence replaces dialogue. Harry, according to those who have observed the situation, increasingly perceives these actions as control rather than protection. William, conversely, sees Harry's resistance as proof of the very vulnerability Diana feared. Emotional isolation amplified by external influence. Meghan Markle's role remains the most polarizing element. To her supporters, she is being unfairly scapegoated by an institution unwilling to accept change. To palace insiders, she represents unpredictability in a system that survives on stability. What both sides privately acknowledge is that her presence has permanently altered Harry's relationship with royal authority. Decisions that once would have been internal are now public. Disputes that once would have been private are now monetized. From a trustee's perspective, that shift alone justifies caution. The palace's refusal to clarify the status of Harry's inheritance has led to rampant speculation, but experts note that this ambiguity may be intentional. By neither confirming nor denying a freeze, the institution preserves flexibility. Funds can remain accessible under supervision. Conditions can be adjusted quietly. No precedent is set. In royal law, ambiguity is power. What remains unresolved is the human cost. Harry has spent years warning that history is repeating itself, that the institution is failing to protect him as it failed to protect his mother. Yet those tasked with guarding Diana's legacy believe they are doing exactly what she would have wanted. This contradiction is the tragedy at the center of the story. Both sides believe they are honoring Diana. Both sides believe the other is betraying her. Whether or not Harry's inheritance was formally frozen may ultimately be beside the point. What has clearly frozen is trust. The system designed to protect Diana's sons has now become the mechanism driving them further apart. And once royal trust fractures at this level, it rarely heals. The future of the House of Windsor now rests on an uncomfortable truth. Independence comes at a cost, and protection often feels like control to those who no longer believe in the institution offering it. Diana's legacy, once a source of unity, has become a mirror reflecting everything the monarchy fears: vulnerability, influence, and loss of control. This story will not end with a press release. It will unfold slowly, quietly, through legal filings, financial adjustments, and continued silence. But one thing is already clear to those watching closely. Whatever Diana hoped for her sons, she never imagined they would be standing on opposite sides of her legacy. And once that line is crossed, there may be no way back.